have a misnomer as we talk about this, and I think that Cal was more or less sort of hinting to that, even though Cal is very direct. We talk about regulatory versus non-regulatory. We deal with regulations every day. Every time we deal with an NRCS plan or NRCS practice or one of our state plans or one of the things that we do in the state, it's all regulatory. And all we are trying to do is make it easier for our clients to deal with that regulation. I think what we should be talking about is the difference between regulatory and enforcement. And yes, we don't probably ever want to get into enforcement if we can help it. But the fact of the matter is, we're going to deal with regulations, and I think part of our job, and this is the education part of that, is to educate our clients, educate the public how to get through that regulatory morass to make it easier on them and get what they want. I think it's much more of that than it is regulatory versus non-regulatory, because unless you're out in the middle of the West someplace in one of the big box states that they don't want any regulation ever anywhere, which they're never going to have either, you're always going to have regulatory. So that's just an opinion, not a question. That wasn't that big a deal.
Thank you. So I think what I've heard you say is somebody else makes the rules. We will educate you about what those rules are, and we'll help you comply, and we'll balance our budget doing that. I'm being simplistic here. If somebody refuses to comply or doesn't want to comply, my question is, do you tell on them? Do you file a complaint? Do you submit a report? Do you tell the agency this is a bad actor, so to speak? Because I think that's, for us, that's where the rub is.
Well, I'll say from my perspective, let's just say I have been involved in the as they say in the State Department when things get a little, let's say, heated. I've been involved in the frank discussions with people, okay? I don't have the time to waste out of my professional career to have to go to a governmental office where I'm meeting with building inspectors or whoever is involved. Could be a county executive. We've had a few of those. And I will say, on the whole, the ones that we have met, when it gets to the county executive level, if they're meeting me because they probably have a relationship with me and they know I'm coming through that door, they'll say, what's the issue here, Matt? Because my time is precious too. And I'll say, this is not happening. Here's the documentation. Our staff spends a great amount of time in documentation. I insist upon it. Because I'm not going to make a fool out of myself and go into somebody else's office and say, they're not doing this, this, and this. Do you have the documentation? And I'll present it. And let's just say what goes on in that room gets resolved. Because when I leave that room, I need them as a partner. Okay, I can't have them carrying on this Hatfields and McCoys, nonsense that goes going to leave that room. But I think the sooner you nip it in the bud, if they're not doing stuff, because it frustrates me when I see building inspectors in New Jersey that don't know the parameters of the 251 law, which has been around for I don't know how long. It's not like this is, just came down 5 minutes ago. So the reality is, I would say and urge you, you need to meet with those individuals, but make sure the documentation is there from your staff side, because that has to be airtight. I mean, I insist upon it. I know our board does. And before we go that route, because I agree, I don't want to get into a long tete-a-tete. That all that is just noise making, is what that is. The public needs to be served. You need to move on. Do you think they really care about that kind of stuff? You know what they care about? Did I get my CO to get into my house? That's what they're interested in. That businessman is owning that plot that he has to get a real estate loan for. And he's got the bank on his butt, or her butt, all right? The bottom line of it is they need to get these things done so they can move on with their lives. But if you're being held back by somebody who's being obstinate, throwing curveballs, or just simply not cooperating, but then you need to meet with whoever that person is and try to develop an end game solution so that you can all go forward together. Because at the end of the day, that's what's important. That's what the public cares about. All this other stuff is just window dressing to what goes on. And from my perspective, I want to maintain a relationship as best as can be with people who I have to deal with every day. That county executive will be there every day. And that legislator will be there. and I have to deal with that reality. I just can't simply say, I didn't like that person. Trust me, there have been many a time when I've sat next to somebody, okay, and I have to deal with that reality. You're on a city council, folks, I can tell you this, and that person's next to your microphone, and the only thing you can agree upon is you're on planet Earth. You got to realize you're going to be there for 4 years with that person. And you got to deal with that. You don't like it, don't be there. As simple as that. All right? It's about cooperation because the public has to be served. That's the thing that matters most. And I think that's what I look at every day with our board. How are they being served? You're going to find those building inspectors. You're going to find those agency people. You're going to find anything.